Okay, so we're here today with Alan Howe from Education, and Alan's going to tell us a little bit about how the Education Studies program team, teaching team, have used Grademark to improve the speed at which students receive their feedback and to see if students use the feedback more if it comes via technology rather than paper. Is that correct, Alan?
That is correct, yes. Okay.
Fantastic. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about why you decided to use Grademark for assessment and feedback, and a little bit about the students in the program?
Sure. Why we decided to use it, I think we're always looking to develop our practice and very aware that feedback to students is an important part of their educational experience and always something that is evaluated perhaps less well in terms of national student survey scores and that kind of thing. And so there was some work to do there about trying to improve our assessment practices to the satisfaction of students and to the satisfaction of all concerned. So here on the Education Studies programme, a large programme, a whole variety of modules, around about 40 modules over the 3 years, levels 4, 5 and 6 of the undergraduate programme. Lots of students on those modules, around about 200 per cohort. So it's quite a big administrative job. Some of the modules that we have here have over 200 students taking them, and those modules are taught by maybe 8, 9, 10 different seminar tutors. And so just trying to keep track of all that and trying to keep that efficient and as time efficient, as effective as possible is one of the challenges for us in terms of assessment. And the traditional way of giving feedback might be within seminars or waiting for students to pick up pieces of work, hoping that they'll come and knock at the door at the appointed time, or that tutors would be available and we'll be able to find their work when it was available. All those challenges. And sometimes that meant that students didn't access their feedback, didn't pick up their feedback, perhaps didn't read their feedback at the time when they should have read their feedback, so it would feed forward into the next module. So we trialled using Grademark, the online marking and feedback for some of our larger modules. So that was teams of some 9, 10, 11 tutors working on the system, and then students accessing their work during the course of the year and also at the end of the year. We have a 3-week turnaround target time at the university, so we're trying to get work submitted, marked, and the feedback to the students within 3 weeks. So that's what we went ahead with, that we asked students to submit their work electronically. They do anyway, they're familiar with Turnitin for other modules, and then told them that their mark this year would be marked by most tutors online, and then explain to them how to access that work. That was a little job to do as well, actually. Not all students were computer literate enough to understand how to get into our virtual learning environment, get their mark, but also get their feedback. And there's 3 sorts of feedback that we give students, and this is consistent with our feedback policy for the university. There's feedback on the criteria set for the assignment. So the students would see that in terms of a rubric that we have in Grademark. We set up a rubric, so they get feedback against each of the criteria for the assignment. Then they have feedback on how they might improve their work for next time. And particularly the module I had in mind was a first-year module, and so some of that was kind of technical things. They might be referred to the Writing and Learning Centre about their Harvard referencing or the use of grammar. Or it's something perhaps more about exploring the details of some of the issues that they started to understand but hadn't read much about. And then the third sort of feedback is the kind of on-script feedback, which is the quick mark function within Turnitin. So tutors were using all 3 aspects of that feedback to give to students.
Great. And you mentioned that you showed the students how to access their feedback. Did you work with the staff? Who trained staff and taught them how to give the feedback using Grademark?
Yeah, that's a good question. So staff obviously were at various levels. Some staff were fairly familiar with that and had used the system for a couple of years previously. Other staff very new to it, and in some cases this was the first module and the first pieces of work that they had marked in such a way. So there's two main ports of call. We have IT support here at the university, and so they went to seek some support and had some training, mostly I think on a one-to-one basis. Other staff that were perhaps a little bit more computer literate but hadn't just used the system were able to teach themselves, access the Turnitin online tutorial, and then just came to ask me or another member of staff just to show, do a demo mark or two, and then they were underway. So I think for somebody who's fairly computer literate, it's a straightforward system to use, and people were fairly quickly getting into it, even those staff that thought perhaps it would be quite a challenge and they didn't really like the idea of it in the first place. They got into it and were able to use the system with that little bit of support.
What percentage of staff do you think were resistant versus the percentage that were keen or at least open to the idea?
Probably 20% resistant, and probably about 60% ambivalent, and 20% very keen. So we had the whole range. But I think actually, and honestly, the staff that did all the staff that did try the system over the year were surprised that it was perhaps easier than they imagined, and it made their lives a little bit easier once they got into the system. I think, like with any IT application, it takes time to learn and it slows people down initially, and some aspects of marking always seem a little bit slower online than you can do on paper. For example, making the marginalia notes it's always going to be quicker with a piece of paper, flicking over from one page to the other, to looking at the end of the assignment to find out the referencing. It's always going to be a little bit quicker, a second or two on paper than it is electronically. But then there were big gains in other aspects. So always having access to the work, not forgetting it or leaving a few pieces of work, or being able to check back perhaps some weeks or months later that a student had indeed submitted a piece of work or had not submitted a piece of work. Then come the exam board, all the work there, all the marks there. And so the administration of it from the staff's point of view, from the module leader's point of view, that's where the time was saved. So a little bit more time on the individual scripts perhaps in some cases, but time saved overall I would judge.
Okay, so what advice would you give to another person working in education or any other program really who might be interested in using Grademark or a similar tool to facilitate feedback to students?
I think probably initially just buddy up with somebody who has already used the system, have a look at what they've done, get them to show you the way in which they've used it, and some of the functions, just so you can kind of get into it and set it up, and then start small scale. Start with perhaps a small module, one piece of work. Take any other member of staff that you're working with through it as well, and take the students through with it. So explain to them what's going to happen, how they can access their feedback, and then talk to them about how they found that experience. And so you're kind of moving forward together with other staff and other students.
Okay. And will you continue using Grademark?
Definitely. I think it's become quite embedded in our practice now. I think because the benefits do outweigh the what's the benefits? Disbenefits?
Challenge?
On balance, it's a better system, I think, than working on paper in many respects. And I think there's some new elements that we'd like to explore about using iPads, for example, so it becomes a little bit more like interacting with paper.
Okay, thanks, Alan. I'll let you go into your phone call.
Thanks, Joelle.
Thanks. Bye-bye.